In today's video, we're going to build a Power BI dashboard from start to finish. I'll show you how to create this engaging dashboard, including adding some insights with DAX measures. So if you're new to Power BI and want to skill up, or you like this dashboard and want it for your own company, come build with me. The first thing we're going to do is load our data set. So if you've downloaded the folder, you should see the Excel workbook in there. That's named income statement. So we're going to go ahead and click that. This has got 4 tabs in there. We're going to bring all of those in. So just go ahead and tick all the 4 tabs and transform the data. So we'll go and clean up the types now. Come on, come over here. Okay, so we'll start with our directors. So we're going to promote our header there. And it knows that they're numbers. And then we're going to go and, what's it called again? Transpose those. No, undo. Okay, so now it's open. We're going to go ahead and start with our directors, and the first thing we're going to do is promote our header. Okay. And then we're going to unpivot our columns. So we want to unpivot those, and so what that does is we end up with our years as our attribute. So we'll rename attribute years, and our values are in whole number, which we like. Okay, and here we'll name this initials. So what we're looking at is the director holdings from the annual report, the initials of the director, the year, so we've got 2022 and 2021, and the value. Then we're going to go over to highlights. So we've got women in leadership and Australian suppliers. And this is a percentage, so we're going to go ahead and change that to percentage. Replace current, so it had already changed the type automatically. Then with our income, we're going to promote that header again. Okay, so we've got our description. So this is our income statement. And we'll make these fixed decimals, so we get that dollar sign, dollar, replace current, and then we've got type, which is ABC. We're happy with that. And then look at our planes. We've got our year and the count of aircrafts per year. We're going to use that to do a measure. So we're done with the Excel workbook. Now the other data set that we need to bring in is the ASX. So the share close price throughout the year. So again, if we go back to our folder, we have a notepad there that has ASX in there. So that's just the web address. So we're going to copy that and we're going to do some web scraping. So we'll come back in here and we'll say we want to do a new source and a web query. And it's going to ask us the URL. So we'll paste that in there, press OK. And then it's going to give us a preview of what that website looks like and whether it's got any tables. So a sip of coffee while it's doing that. And most websites have multiple tables. There's usually one that's formatted, and we're lucky with this one that there's a HTML table at the top here, so we're going to click on that. You can click Web Preview to see what it looks like as a website, but as you can see in the table, it's got the month and year and the open, high, low, and close values for the ASX market. So we'll go ahead and press OK, and we end up with our new table in there. And Power BI has done its magic. It looks great. So I'm just going to rename that ASX share price. So I know exactly what it is. And you guessed it, we're going to promote our header again. And really all we need in here is our close price and our date. So we're just going to select date and our close price, and then we're going to say remove other columns. So nice and clean, and then we're going to replace our date type with date. Oh, we've ended up with an error there, so let's see what was in there. September, hey? It doesn't like September. Let me just think for a moment. So you can see that September is 4 letters long. I think that for Power BI we just need it to be SEP. So we're just going to do a replace value and see if that fixes it. So come up here, values to find SEPT and go SEP. Okay. And this time, to make it a bit cleaner, I'm just going to pass it. There we go. No errors that time. So we've got our date. We still do have 1% of errors, and must have been some text in there, so we're just going to go ahead and get rid of the text by filtering that out on our close. Okay, and we might get rid of our dividends as well, so text filter contains anything with dividend. Try that again. Does not contain. Okay. And now we're going to change this to a decimal value. So there we go. We've cleaned up our ASX, and we're going to close and apply now. So we've got our data tables ready to go. And it's just going to load them in. Now the first thing I do once I've got my data in is have a look at the data, get a feel for it, what information we've got, maybe if I see any insights, and then I'm going to write out the questions that I'm trying to answer. So each page should have a primary question you're trying to answer, and then you've sort of got some sub-questions that based on the data. And so I find the easiest way to do that is just to insert a text box, and then it reminds me as I'm building what the focus should be. So here we've got our text box, and so the primary purpose of this is how did the company perform financially. Okay, so there's our first question. It's a bit bigger so we can all read it. 14. Okay. Second of all, we want to see their where they spent their money and where we got income. So income and spending. Then I find a good way to know how a company is doing is looking at their director holdings. So I'm going to put some kind of visual for the director holdings. We brought in the share price to show how it performed publicly, so we'll put the share price in at some point. And with these reports, I like to include the highlights. Gives it a bit of a human aspect, and people want to look at it. So highlights, and then of course we're going to have some boxes with our insights. I'll make that nice and big. So there's my focus or questions. Now I'm just going to move that down a bit so we can start the build. And usually I end up with a visual for one of these, maybe multiple visuals. So the second thing I usually do is I build out the theme. So we're just going to start with a box across the top. So let's put in a shape, and I'm going to put that there. So when you start with Power BI, you end up with a color palette in here, and it's just a very basic color palette. So if you want to change that and build out a theme for the company that you're working with, you come to the View tab, and you can see the pre-built themes here. You can pick one of those and customize it as you want. And I've done that already, so we're actually just going to upload the theme that I've already customized, and that should be in your Build With Me folder. So we're going to go ahead and pick the theme that I've already built for this one. So if we come into our view, we see all the themes that are available, and we're going to browse for a theme. And we're looking for a JSON file here. So it's just called Air Travel Theme in the folder. Double click that, and we see that instantly our square changes to red. And if we have a look at our color palette now, it's very different to what it was. Okay, so we're starting with a red background, but to give it some depth and character, we're actually going to insert an image here. It's just an image that I created in Word. It looks like this, red swirl. And that's going to go over the top here. And we're just going to go to Style and scale that to fill the whole width. Okay, and it will look a bit like this. We probably want to make that a bit bigger. So let's see what the height of this is. It's currently 176. I like even numbers, so we're going to go 220. Now the reason that we left the red box behind is because if I move that out, you'll see the edges you can still see here, so it's a bit messy, so I like to just have the red box in the background covering out those edges. So then we often have the logo of the company, so today we're just going to have a picture of a plane, so it's going to be a white plane, so you can see it on the red background here. We'll resize that. We might go 100 by 100, see what that's like, and we can resize it a bit later. And then we're going to put a text box over the top for our title, and we'll call it our annual report. Make this white, a bit bigger. Bold it for now and see what it looks like. Okay, so we need to go ahead and get rid of the background colors for this. Good. And then let's make it nice and big to match our logo. Not letting me drag today. Some days you just have a bit of trouble with that. Okay, annual report. Very nice. So we've got our logo and our title there. Now we're going to put in some boxes for each of our elements. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and add our cards. So to do that, we're going to insert a shape, and we're just going to pick the square. And now we're going to resize the first one. So this will be our data card with the main point. So we're going to go to properties. We're going to go 185 for our height, and for the first one, just 200. So a nice square there. And now we're going to go and format that. So we'll go to our shape and take off the formatting here, and we'll do it in the general area. So we can copy that later. So turn on the background, we want that to be white. We want a visual border, so we can give it a bit of a rounded corner. So we're just going to give it a 5, just smooth those corners out, as you can see. And we also want to give it a shadow because it just sort of disappears there. So general effects and give it that shadow. Looks quite nice. Okay, now we want another 2 of these boxes. They're going to be a bit bigger, so we're just going to Control C to copy and Control V. We end up with another one of them, and then we're going to change the width for this one. Leave the height the same so they match. So we're going to go 475. Okay, and then we'll just add a second one of those and get them to fit nicely here. Make sure that they line up. You should see the red lines in Power BI lining up. Go, bring it over. You want to try and make sure the space in between your boxes is even as possible, and that's going to be the left starting point of our report. And then we're going to put another 2 of those underneath. Width-wise, we're going to make it a bit smaller because we need this big box with our income and spending to be quite large. So let's try 275 here. Maybe a bit bigger. Maybe we'll go 300. We'll try that for now, see if our visuals fit in there. We can always resize it. Move that up, make sure that fits. Okay, so I might move these ones up just to give myself a bit more space. And then for our last one, we're just going to use our format painter, and we're going to format paint our text box with our focus points in it. And then we will move that to match our heights. Okay, so that's going to be our template for the report with our boxes. So now we're going to go and add our visuals. So to start with, I don't like this line here, so what I might do is actually just bring the line and hide it. It'll take our boxes up. You'll find when you're designing this report, I think this is my 6th edition of this air travel annual report, that you, I don't know what the word is, finick all the time with things. Okay, let's go and add our first visual or data card. So add a data card in there, and that's going to be here. And this is going to be our main point. Did the company make a profit or a loss? So we come to our income statement. Ooh, I'm missing our value. So we'll have to jump back into transform data. I think I've missed the unpivot step there. Income, yeah, so we've still got these 2 columns. So we just need to unpivot them. Remember, we've got the type there. So now we're going to include details of our income and spending. So first of all, I'm just going to move this out of the way because this is where we want to put it in there. Just bring that forward so it doesn't disappear. In Power BI, everything's layered just like in Word. And so that would have fallen behind our header. So we're just going to copy our summarized income and spending, and we're going to make that nice and big. I'm going to format paint that so it's got the same background, shadows, corners. Okay, give it sort of the same space as the ones above. Okay, we're going to turn that into a vertical column, and then we're going to get rid of our year from our x-axis, and we're going to replace that with our description and put our year in our legend. And that's going to color code those, break it up. There we go. Now we're going to get rid of our legend because we've defined the years up the top here. So click on your format visuals, get rid of your legend. We're going to get rid of the axis titles. Go, and we're also just going to get rid of the title of the visual to give it as much space as possible. Now it looks a bit cluttered with all of the data values that we've got on there, so what we will do there is we're going to get rid of 21's data labels. So come down to data labels and pick 21 and turn that off. It looks a little bit cleaner there. So now that we've detailed the income and spending, because we know the focus of the dashboard is how they perform financially, we're going to summarize that as well because it's a key component. So I'm going to copy the graph on the bottom, Control C and Control V. And we're going to bring it up the top here. We're going to make it much smaller. And then instead of having the description here, we're going to change that to the type, which is our income and expenditure. Okay, so we've got income and expenditure. Now we want our expenditure to be the other way around, just make it easier to read on the eye. So to do that, we're going to have to create 2 graphs. So this one, we're just going to have the income. So if we go to type and filter it to income, and we'll make that a bit smaller. We're going to take the background off because we've got the the square there that we'll be using. So go to Effects and turn off our background and any visual borders or shadows. And we're just going to bring it up so it sits in there, make it a bit smaller as well. Okay, excuse my filter tooltip, it's just hovering at the moment. Now we're going to duplicate that and create the expenditure one. Control C, Control V again, let that load. Try and line it up so the wording lines up good, and then come into your filters and change that from income to expenditure. Okay, and now we're going to invert our axis there. So come down to your y-axis and invert the range. Okay, now because we've inverted it, they're level at the moment, but this is actually more, minus 10 billion, so we want to make that bigger than the 9 billion just so it computes for us. So we'll try that. Maybe a bit smaller. Okay, maybe we'll make the income one smaller. I just want to know how much the expenditure was last year, because at the moment we're representing that it was minus 9 billion, if you were to look at that. So let's just going to put that down here, hover over it and see. So 8.25, so our 9 should be a bit higher than the last year's. So we might be a bit more exact. We'll come into general properties and resize it here. So our height, let's just try it 160. We'll have to move it up again once we do that. They're in line. Okay, 160, so that's definitely higher than the 8. And we'll make this one a little bit bigger as well, just so we can represent that 10 well. Okay, and then I can move this one up. So a little bit of finicking to get this right, but at the end of the day it looks good for the end user. So we might bring it over as well because we've got space there, and we'll bring over our income. So the next thing that we're going to add on there is an insight. So a good insight here is how much income has increased from 2021 to 2022. And we can see that it's a bit of a jump there. So last year it was 6.5, this year it's 9.5. So let's create some measures, and we'll put a gauge there to show how well they're doing. So come over to income. I always like to start with a quick measure, and we're just going to do a filtered value of our 22 income. So come down to a filtered value. Then we're going to go to our income, and our base value is value, excuse my voice, and our filter is the year. And we'll pick 22 there and press OK. And so that will give us our measure in the formula bar, and then we'll turn it into a variable and copy it for 21. My PC is a little bit slow today. Let's give it a moment. Okay, so I'm going to click on that value. We'll first change the title, income increase, and then so we'll turn this into a variable, so variable, and call that one 22 equals this. And now we're going to copy that and shift enter to add another line, paste in, that line, and we'll change this one to 21 and change the year in the filter here. Okay, so now we've got our two variables. Shift enter a few times, and then we're going to type return, and we'll use those variables. So we want to say 22 minus 21 gives us our income increase. And we'll press enter to compute, and then we will add our gauge, click away and pick the gauge visual. There, resize it a bit, and then drop in our, that doesn't look right. What have I done? Oh, so this has currently got both expenditure and income. So we'll come in here and we'll add our type to this, and we just want to look at the income only. That looks better, 2.9. Now it's red because that is the primary color of my theme. But obviously this is positive, so people like to work on traffic lights, so let's go with the green color here. So there's no green in my color palette. Oh, yes there is. There we go. So we'll pick that green there, and then our target color, we might make that one white. And we'll enter our target in and our max today. So you can have them as measures, or you can pull them from another table, which is what you'd usually do with your targets. And for our max, turn 5 billion, so that's 9 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. And we can see our graph changes. And for our target, we're going to say that was 2 billion. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we can see now our target sits there. Okay, now we might turn off the target label and just leave the white line there. Highlight it, and we'll turn off the call out values as well to make it nice. Sorry, not the call out values, the what are they called? The data labels. Okay, so nice and clean. We might make it bold as well with the call out value. I'm a big fan of the dim light. What does dim look like? Yeah, that looks a bit better. We'll make it black. And we might just clean up the title a little bit. Okay, center that one. And make sure it's consistent with this one. They're both DIN 14. We're happy with that. So next we're going to add in our visuals about our directors. So we'll show their holdings first of all. So we're going to create a area graph for that. Area graph. Okay. And we're going to put in the year and the value. And we'll sort it the other way around. So it's got 21 first, so sort it by the year. And sort that ascending, please. And you know me, I turn off all of the titles. I'm not a fan of them. Wish they were off to as default, but maybe one day. And we're going to turn off our y-axis. Okay, so we can see that director holdings grew from 21 to 22. Let's put a data label on so we can know the values there. And let's put them in millions if we can. So value, display units, and we'll go millions please to make that easier to read. Let's give it some decimals. We can go 3.4 to 3.7, make it black so it's easy to read. Now this one's a hard one to work with because our primary color is red. So red generally means negative. So we might They do have sort of a purple colour there in their branding, so we might use that one. And make it a bit bigger so it's easier to read. Make sure we've got the background up so it doesn't affect our borders. Good. Okay. Now we want to do the same thing that we did with income increase and do the increase in director holdings. So this time I'm just going to cheat. We're going to do a, we'll go to our income and we're going to copy this one. Copy. And then we're going to come back to our directors and create a new measure there. We're going to paste and then just change the names of the tables because our columns are actually the same name there. Paste it in. Okay, and this time we're just changing that to holdings increase. And instead of having income in here, we're going to have directors. And press enter. That should work. No, column year. Oh, it's called years in here, so we'll just have to add that S. Let's try again. Good to go, we've got our holdings increase there. So now we're going to add a data card. We'll drag and drop it. And we can see that there was a 69k increase. I'll bring it over. Just going to cheat this time and format paints. And we might turn off the category label and insert put a title on because our others have it across the top. So I've got this increase in director holdings. And we'll center that. Let's make it a bit bigger. So there we go. And we probably want to make the annual loss data card the biggest because it's our most important. So we'll put that one as 15. Might bring this one down. The call out value, so we might bring it down in size. No, unfortunately with the gauge we don't have that option. If we do, that's okay. So we'll come down here and we'll make the call out value a bit smaller. So what was this? It was 20. So we'll go ahead and center our title so it's like the others. Make it a bit bigger. Now, size-wise for the value, we really want our annual loss value to be the biggest. So let's come in here and go to the value. And we've got that one at 20. We might bump that one up to 22. So it's the focal point. And then we might put this one at our 21. Okay, 69k. Very nice. Okay. Now, to give that a bit more understanding, we might do the average holdings per director. So, create a new data card. So copy that one to start with. We might not have the title there. We'll probably have our value below it. And this time we're going to be doing the average holdings. So we will do the value. Now we just want the holdings for 2022, so we'll filter out 21 there. So 3 million is how many there is, and we'll say the average. So there we go, 433,000. We'll make that a bit smaller and we'll get rid of the decimal points. make it 14. Show some black. 16. Okay. And we want to make that title quite small because it's not a focal point here. And we might make it a 10. Nice and small. Okay, so we want to line those up. Then get it working for our square. In the middle there. There's a lot in there, so we might put a line in there to break it up. Shape. And we'll make that quite transparent. You look at these things and worry that maybe people will think that's division. But we'll ignore that for now. Okay, 90, see what that does. Please get this wrong. It's the border that we want to make transparent. 90. It's probably a bit light, so we'll try that again. Border. And let's make it 80. There we go. Okay. See if we can bring this up a bit more. Our line up a bit more. Okay, I like that. Bring that one down. Okay, good. So we've got our director holdings, we've got our income and spending, our share price. So, over here in our ASX share price, we will bring in our close price by date. So we want to do probably the same. Let's do an area graph again. Okay, drag it out, and this time we're bringing in date by close. Okay, now we've got 5 years of data there, so we want to change it just to date and not the hierarchy, and we're going to do a relative date and just say we want the last 2 years. Apply. That looks quite good. Now, of course, we'll have to change the data values because they're showing in millions, and their share prices are only around $4.50. So let's come down to value, and we're just going to put auto on. We see that straight away. And we might make our lines that dark purple as well. Like we've done above with the director holdings. Okay. And those data labeled, they're a bit washed out, so let's see if we can make them a bit more black. Good. And then we will add a title. So this is our ASX share price. And we'll center it in our little box there. Maybe a bit wide, so I'll bring it in a bit. Okay, so now we've got our share price. The only thing left are our highlights. We've been doing our insights as we go, so we can get rid of this box now. Click on the dots and remove it. So, highlights. I've got a table here where I've included some, so I've gone through an annual report. I've read all the information and picked some highlights out. So we'll go ahead and add some data cards. And then we're going to put the value in. And let's have a look at what I'll put the description in and filter it out. So the first one we'll put in is Australian suppliers. So this is a %, so we need to change that data type. We didn't do it in the back end, but we can do it here. So 69%, and we're going to get rid of our zeros there. No decimals, thank you very much. And this is going to look nicer if we have our labels on the bottom and we get rid of our title. Okay, let's go ahead and change some of values to Australian suppliers. You can make that title dynamic there, but we're just going to type it. We are text wrapping, so I think it's just that it's not big enough, maybe. Call that value text wrap, yeah. Make it. Sorry, we want to be. There we go. It's a bit of messing around. Okay, so we've got our suppliers, 69%. Now we're going to copy that. I'm going to change that label and bring in our purple colour just to give it a bit of difference. Okay. Next of all, we have our women in leadership. So 37% of their management is women, which is wonderful. So let's change that to women in leadership. Make sure we spell it right. And then thirdly is a stat about planes, but you'll notice it's not in our highlights. We've got a separate table called planes. And so what this shows is the count of planes over the years. So we're going to use that same formula where we take the 22 from 21 to find out how many new planes they've had in the last year. So we'll go up to our directors. Okay, so we're going to go to our director table, copy the measure, come down to planes, and create a new measure, and paste that in. And we'll call that new planes. And then we're going to replace director with planes, and value with aircraft, and planes. And what have we got? Year this time. And again, planes, aircraft, and planes, year. Good. Press enter. And now we'll go ahead and replace our measure. With an error there. This usually happens when we're using, let me have a look. So our years are numbers here instead of text. So we'll specify the number, take out the bracket, see if that fixes it. Working on it, and what have we got? 7 new planes, very good. Okay, so now we've got our 3 insights there, or highlights. And we're going to add some images just to make them stand out. So go to Insert and Image, and they should be in the download file. So first of all, we've got the Australian map there, so we'll resize it. Put that there. So that looks to be a good size. Let's see what we resized to. So let's go 95, or a bit tall, maybe 90 by 90. We'll go. Yeah, that seems like a good height. Okay, and now let's put our women in leadership. There we go. So General properties, 90 by 90 again. Now this image is a bit thin compared to our Australian map, so what we might do is we copy and paste it and then overlay it to thicken it up. There we go. So it looks a similar thickness now. Okay, and planes. So got a nice picture of a plane there. I think the size is going to have to be a bit different on this one, but we'll see. Just looks very small, yeah, so sometimes you eyeball it. Okay, good. Now we need to tell our readers what this is, so we don't have room for a heading here, so we might do one along the side here. So we're going to insert a text box. So I'm just going to add a shape. And yeah, rotation. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate it. Fill, we don't want any fill or borders. Actually, we might have a nice grey. 75. Try that. Okay, so we want to add some text in and some highlights. Some colour is our red. Make it nice and bold. Well, let's go that. Okay, and let's go 16. And now what we'll do is we will rotate her around. So 270. Yep. Okay, there we go. And add. So we're going to have to do the rounded corners. Okay, so general. Gives us, okay, bring it down a little bit. Didn't actually give it any rounded corners today. So 10. Good. That's that round look. We line it up exactly. And we'll change our fill to be in the background, so it fills in those nice corners. Actually, I think it's a bit big, so we'll just change our text here. 14. It's better. Highlights. Maybe a bit lighter as well. So effects. Yeah, I like that. Highlights. Maybe a bit too light. So what's in between? 30. Okay. So now we just go around and make sure everything is sort of in line. So we kind of want this. Just try and get it in line. Usually I like sort of my corners to line up with these, but so there we have it. This is our air travel annual report.
Thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button.